what he wanted to work on.
Yeah. Well, good evening, Cedar Falls, and welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, February 21st. This meeting was scheduled to occur at 7. We're beginning at 8:05 due to a previous meeting that ran longer than expected. I will now delay while folks sit down and call the meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer. Here. Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Sires.
Aye.
Dunn. Here. All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of February 7th?
So moved. Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that does pass and brings us over to agenda revisions. I have one revision to pull item 15 out of the agenda. That is personnel policies. That'll be brought forward in the next meeting on March 7th. Madam Clerk, do we have other agenda revisions?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Executive session is also being removed from the agenda, so there'll be no executive session tonight.
Okay, so we'll strike executive session. And for special presentations tonight, I have a proclamation recognizing March 2nd, 2022 as Read Across America Day. And for that, I have hopefully Library Director Kelly Stern. So this is odd. I think I might have to just stay here and then you stay there and I'll fling this over to you. So Read Across America, March 2nd, 2022. Whereas Read Across America Day is an annual initiative of the National Education Association to promote reading for pleasure and personal growth. And whereas this motivational and awareness day on March 2nd each year encourages all children and young adults to celebrate reading in every community across the United States. And whereas the Cedar Falls Public Library, local school libraries, and bookstores are treasure troves of adventure, knowledge, and inspiration through the written word. And whereas children benefit from seeing their parents, guardians, and other important role models actively engaged in reading for pleasure and growth. Therefore, I, Robert M. Green, Mayor of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim March 2nd, 2022 as Read Across America Day throughout the city, and I encourage citizens to celebrate literacy and the written word by visiting the Cedar Falls Public Library, Waterloo Public Library, school library, or bookstore, and selecting a great book to model and pass along a love of reading to the next generation. Signed this 14th day of February, 2022, Mayor Robert M. Green. So again, with us tonight, we have Library Director Kelly Stern, and she has a few words for us for a new program that the library is offering.
Yes. So this is a timely opportunity that just right around Read Across America Day, our community is launching Dolly Parton's Imagination Library Project for children under 5 in Black Hawk County. This is a joint project among the 7 public libraries in Black Hawk County, and our official 501c3 affiliate with the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is the Cedar Falls Community Foundation, who have set up a fund specifically for this project. So between now and May, the public libraries are raising funds to be able to open up registration to children in the county. Our registration fundraising goal is $75,000. We have to have the first 2 years of funding lined up before we can start registering children so that we won't run out of money right after we start registration. Fundraising will be ongoing, though, throughout the next 5 years because the total estimated cost of the program over 5 years is about $308,000. So the library has set up a web page as part of our library web page where you can go and read about this program. And there's also a link that takes you directly to the fund at the Cedar Falls Community Foundation if you decide that you would like to donate to the project online. So you can find it on the library's web page under the About tab and also under the Youth tab. We know that having books in the home and being read to makes a huge difference in the lives of children in terms of their readiness for school, their academic success in school. It just sets them up for the rest of their lives. So we celebrate this day. Thank you, Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Stern. And I've left the presentation or the proclamation over on the table for you for prominent display.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't speak up fast enough. I'd like some clarification, so pull 29 and 30.
Oh, well, that's later. So,
Okay.
all we were doing in the
Is
agenda
15?
revisions was sort of deleting those items out.
Okay.
So we'll have that opportunity shortly. So with that proclamation read, that brings us over to public forum, where speakers have an opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Does anyone from the public wish to speak tonight? Yes, Ms. Beach? Name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Rosemary Beach, 5018 Sage Road, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I want you all to just shake your heads after this, your last meeting, and because this will be on the other end of the spectrum, that I want you to think about saving the houses up at the university that really belong to us, not just the university. And just remember that Homer Surley's home was built in 1890. And if you plan to let the university, without any discussion, tear that down, you're missing a big piece. I wonder if you all remember the theater in Waterloo, the Paramount. They're still yelling about that, and sorry about that they let people tear that down. So I wanted you to think about that. You know that we did send in the information for places that were sincerely being looked at to be torn down. And this came out on February 7th to let you know that the Homer Surley home has been designated as the first 2022 most endangered property. So I'm glad to hear that that was being looked upon kindly by the state.
And I'll note that, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What?
Continue.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I don't think I said anything upside down. Anyway, there are lots of ways to get that. I know that Kelly was talking about having a meeting with President Nook. I don't know if anything's happened. I know less than I can possibly tell you. But hopefully, if that does happen, that this is also considered. I was given the opportunity by the University, Northern Iowan. The little gal who does this, Carolyn Christensen, asked if I would talk to her on the phone. I did. And she did a really nice story, I thought, because, of course, I thought it was well written for what we wanted to hope happened, and that is those buildings be saved. So that happened in between. I'm still thinking the university should place those houses on the National Register. One too long to go that the Iowa Cultural Affairs Department awarded $118,000 grants to 14 historical preservation places. There's places that you can go to do looking for money and such as that. I do know that I was told when the celebration comes up for the university before too long, they have ordered 2 new bells for the Campanile, I believe. And I think to myself, you're ordering new bells for the Campanile. You don't have a caroliner. That's not right. That's not saying that right. But you don't have anybody to play it. And you're going to tear down 2 historical houses on your campus. I don't understand that. I find that difficult to think about. And I'm so in hopes they would take to heart to make a museum, a small museum, out of especially Surley's house. Other than that, I just keep asking that you pay attention. I don't think the alumni are aware that they're being torn down. I don't think there's been any real information out from UNI about that. And if you are an alumni, I think you might care about that a little bit. Other than that, I just wish you would contemplate the fact of contacting the university, having some conversation that we could. That house is really ours. There are buildings. They're in our town, and they make us important. And is an important reason that we should be helping save them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to note that she had said that it was a state designation, but as I understand the
I can't hear you back here. What?
As I understand, the Preservation Iowa group is a nonprofit group not connected with the state.
No, but it it puts out the information, so at least that information goes out through the state. The region should be meeting yet this month, and what the original thing to tear it down was tabled, so that can be untabled, and they can probably tear it down in 2 seconds. But it seems to me that Cedar Falls should care enough for its history, and that is its history. It's not just the universities, it's our history. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beach. And I'll note if anyone else wishes to speak from the gallery. Also, we have a few Zoom callers in tonight. If anyone from Zoom wishes to speak with us, just click the raise hand icon or dial *9, and I'll see that hand and can unmute you here.
Rod, I think there was a woman.
Oh, yes, if there's anyone who wishes to come forward, please do so. Thank you, ma'am. Just name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Mary Legore at 2602 Cedar Heights Drive, and I'm up here tonight to talk to you about raising our property taxes. I did some digging, and I found that Iowa's for tax relief has put in American Rescue Plan Act for this exact purpose, and that's for taxpayers for property relief. Instead of raising our taxes, I'm begging you to please take this into consideration. Basically, I'm up here speaking for all senior citizens, poor people like me, because I'm on a fixed income now. I've lived paycheck to paycheck my whole life, and I can deal with that. What I can't deal with is only making $1,200 a month with Social Security, and then I'm already paying $1,000 every 6 months or whatever it is for taxes on my house. So where does that leave me with $200? Well, I have the choice. I can either buy medicine, food, or pay some of my bills. Now, this is all on me, so I don't expect any feel sorry for me or anything. This is the way I choose to live. Material things do not matter to me. All that matters is that we try to do better at saving income for people like me. People that are taxed tremendously for everything that they have. Maybe you could do a little bit better by not working on roundabouts at this time. Since the inflation, this cost me $150 this past 2 weeks just to buy the same groceries I bought last month. My utility bill is $660. So, you can kind of figure out where I'm at. I'm in the poorhouse. I don't care, I'm just here to live life and have a good time. And, I expect people to go about their business, and I do mine. I'm just asking for your consideration on this matter, and I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glory. Any other speakers for public forum tonight? Okay, seeing none, and none on Zoom, I then will bring us over to our special order of business. That's item 3 is the first item. It's a public hearing on the proposed maximum levy for affected property tax levies for FY 2023. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that passes. Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed tonight?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. For staff comments, we have Director Jen Rodenbeck, I believe, is going to speak on this item.
Thanks, Mayor. So tonight is the public hearing to set the maximum for the applicable levies for FY23. A presentation was given at the last meeting in committee, and included in that packet was the full budget document and the presentation, if anyone's interested. The presentation outlined many factors that go in the budget and explained that the proposed tax rate for FY23 is $11.67. And when you take that into account for the rollback factors for each class of property and the revaluation on residential, the effect on property values will be 4.65% for residential, 2.55 for commercial, and actually a 3.15 decrease on multi-residential. During the presentation, it was also explained that the maximum levy is only for applicable levies in that form by the state of Iowa, so it can get kind of confusing sometimes. So that shows $10.92, but again, just want to say that our total is 1167. This is the first of two hearings in the budget process, so just a reminder that tonight is setting the maximum levy. It's not approving the budget at this point. That'll occur at the hearing on March 7th. And so really for tonight, the only reason not to vote for the maximum levy would be is if you want to increase it. So again, tonight's about the maximum, and then for staff, if council wants to decrease it, then they can sure provide us tonight direction to if they want to see decreases, if there's certain items, they want to reduce, we can sure take that feedback tonight too. But again, I just want to make sure everybody understands it's just the maximum and we can still go down at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? Seeing none in the gallery, does any on Zoom? You can press *9 or the raise hand icon. Seeing none there either. So again, none in the gallery. So I'll consider the public hearing closed and bring us over to item 3E, which is the resolution approving and adopting the maximum levy for effective property tax levies for FY 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motioned and seconded? Or do we have a second? I didn't hear the second.
Second.
No, I just had a comment.
Okay. So a motion and seconded, open for discussion. Councilmember
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to clarify, my soon-to-be vote on here is not to increase it. I believe that we should be down at zero. We need to watch our spending, and that's how we control our budget. When you just spend on everything that you ever come across that you want, pretty soon you have a problem. So to say that my soon-to-be vote says I want to raise that, that's not even true, or even close to true. That's all.
I'd have a question of clarity. I think it's probably customary that the max levy is probably what's carried through to the budget vote. What is our experience in setting the max levy and then lowering it after the fact? Do we have any comment on that from staff?
I would say experience most of the time has been the same, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been debate. I would say there's been debate some years of should we lower it, and maybe certain council members wanted to do that, but maybe got outvoted or whatever. But I would agree. Now, you have to remember the max levy's only been in place for 2 years, so this is a totally new step. So to say that we've always done that, well, we're only talking for the last 2 years that's happened because it's a new step.
So do I understand right then, if you have the maximum levy rate set tonight, then you could change it, or we could give direction to staff to say, please have a lower budget, have a lower levy or actual levy, and then that would affect what projects we complete.
Correct. I think you could
Next meeting.
give staff direction either way. You could say if you would like a 3% increase on residential versus 4.65, or there's certain projects we don't want to see included in the budget. We can get direction either way.
Okay. Other questions, comments?
So
Councilmember
when
Drew?
would you want the discussion on how we would want to lower it? I mean, obviously, we want to set the maximum, but when would you want that discussion of what items we might want to consider to try to reduce it? Would that be
Say something.
before or after you do this
Yeah.
vote, or?
Well, I mean, I think for us, we want to ensure that we are approving the maximum levy tonight. We
Right.
want to get that done, just so we can keep moving on in the process. And I think right after that, and I'll leave that up to Mayor Green, if everyone's okay with at that point, giving staff direction after that for the March 7th meeting, or if council feels like they need to have a special work session to do that, we can sure do that too. So I think, however we want to do it tonight, Mayor, if right after the max levy, if council has some direction they want to give us, I think that would be fine.
Sorry?
And if this is out of order, you can call me out of order, and we can ask it later. But let's say that we did want to talk about lowering it, and how much savings can we possibly get per household feasibly?
Well, I think maybe what you're asking, Simon, is when I talked about the 4.65% on residential,
Yes.
for a $100,000 home, that's $30 a year.
Yes.
So if you have a $300,000 home, again, we use $100,000 to make the math easy, it's $90 a year for
So,
a $300,000
and I know money's money. I like to save money too, but I guess, and I'm not opposed to having the conversation of lowering it. I'm just wondering, like, if we took it all the way down from 4.65 to 0, that we would have to take out $800,000 roughly or more out of the budget, correct?
Right, I would say we'd probably be closer to $1 million that we'd have to
And,
cut.
but we don't have, how much is in GO?
700
752,000?
For the for the general revenue column on the CIP, it's 700 and some thousand. Now, again, remember, that's only capital. Obviously, there's other things you could choose to amend in the budget, personnel costs, new positions that were added. I mean, that's just capital that we're talking about.
So we need to get $1 million out, and that would lower, if we took $1 million out, that would lower the taxes roughly,
From $30 on a $100,000 home to zero. I think that's what you're asking.
Of the
right?
increase,
Or,
right?
Yeah, right.
With
I wish I
$30.
paid
but
$30.
it's 30 per half
I mean, yeah.
percent, right? So it'd be 30 times 8.
no, what I was
So
saying
100
earlier is with the 4.65% being proposed
Yes,
on a $100,000 home, that's
yes.
$30 more a year that house would have to pay. So what
Than
I
they
thought
paid last year.
over last year. So what I thought you were asking is if we went all the
Okay.
way down to zero, what does that save?
Yes, that's what I was asking.
Right, yeah.
And then if we increase it below that, it goes to the $8 per half percent. Is that what you were?
So I had mentioned the one day that, yeah, I mean, because I had said about it takes about 110,000 to lower 0.5%. And you're
Yeah.
right, if 4.65, $30, I think that's what you were getting to, the $8
Yeah.
is that what
Yeah.
you were talking about?
Yes. So I understand it. And sorry, I'm being long-winded. If we get it to zero, it saves 30 per 100,000, and then every 0.5% after that would be 8. So I'm definitely open at looking at saving some, but I guess I would say we should weigh. We have to weigh taking $1 million out of the budget to save $30 to $60. To me, what's the opportunity cost there?
Depends what items you can identify. Take out.
$1 million is a lot of money.
Well, we can wait till after the vote.
That's true. And again, that's why I say I don't know when the appropriate time to talk about it is. I'm open to talk about it.
And I'll say, looking at Robert's rules, I wouldn't be comfortable having discussion about what specific items to remove from the budget tonight, because what we're talking about tonight is setting the maximum levy. I believe it would be appropriate to then refer, at the end of this meeting, refer to a work session to have that discussion. I think there may be people here who would be concerned about items being cut, and that they wouldn't have the chance to observe or comment on that tonight.
That's fair. Yeah.
Well,
But certainly
about
would want
having-
to have that discussion.
Committee of the whole meeting.
Correct. But just
work
not
session.
tonight.
Not work session, committee of the whole meeting. That way you can get public comment.
Oh, yeah, good point.
and that would have to be at the next 2-week meeting, because isn't the budget then presented at that meeting?
At March 7th.
Yeah.
Or plan.
Well, I think it'd have to be before that then, because they couldn't do it on the
Right.
fly that night, right before the
Right.
meeting.
So yeah, if I
have
know
to have a
earlier today, we were talking about, do you want to have a special work session on Thursday?
Or special, we could do a special committee of the whole.
Committee of the
too,
whole, right.
Not Thursday.
So-
Okay.
And just remember that the budget goes out, or the agenda goes out significantly earlier now, so we're probably looking at this week, if you want to give staff time to work those numbers.
Yeah, so we would need to have a look at, if we wanted to have items removed from the budget, that would occur this week. They would make those changes based on the council motion. I imagine that's what it would look like. And then they would have that ready for the next meeting, this on the 7th for the actual budget.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could we move to suspend the rules of Roberts and then make some comments, what we'd like to see cut at the end after we do the max vote?
That would be, I think, just out of order, because what you're doing is you'd be asking about specific items that aren't included on the agenda.
How about suggestions of cuts?
I
don't know.
My spidey sense tells me that would not be good. It's not that I don't want to have the discussion. I'm trying to do one way or the other. Ooh,
That's phone. Check.
what's that? We're done.
Testing, 1, 2, testing.
Okay.
Can you
I
hear
just
me?
want to make sure we didn't lose our people on Zoom. We'll see. Okay. Yeah, people are still online, so we're all right. I would not want to have a discussion about the specific items tonight. I would want to have that in a actual deliberation setting separate from this. And where are we at with that, Attorney Rogers? I'm going to turn to you on that. Your thoughts? I just don't want us to do things that are beyond what's the scope of our agenda tonight. We have to be really careful about that.
The problem with doing it by way of referral at the end of the meeting is we're not going to be voting on the items. We're going to be voting on whether or not to refer the matter to staff. And so if there are several items under consideration for looking at, it probably needs to be in a setting where council is voting on those items, whether they're going to get a thumbs up or thumbs down on those particular. I don't hear anybody saying going up, so those cuts. That it probably is going to be a lot more efficient and get not only council participation but public participation if we have a special meeting.
Right. If we had that in the referral, we wouldn't have the public participation section at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, there will be a public hearing yet on the budget on March 7th, so the public could come out and comment on that, but all they're going to see is the packet then. They're not going to have much time to go over what council decided to cut out of the budget. So it could happen either way, I suppose, but in the interest of public participation and transparency, you probably want to have a meeting where council is saying thumbs up or thumbs down on particular items. That way staff has specific direction from council what that document comes back and looks like on the 7th. So we can keep going.
Okay, thank you. Other comments and thoughts on this?
So I guess I'm still curious on suspending the rules, if that's too much of a gray area. I mean, that's what Mr. Rogers, to say after the vote for the maximum levy, we want to add suggestions on cuts. That's out of the realm of what we can do.
The problem with that is the suspension of the rules doesn't cure the public notice, which we didn't put that on the agenda.
Well, if we give suggestions of cuts, then that'll be at the March 7th public hearing. So it's there for comment.
So we haven't voted on this resolution yet, right?
Correct.
Hypothetically, council could say under debate about approving this max levy is, you know, I'd really like to see this and this cut or this percentage. That could give direction to staff to put something together. But that's up to council how it wants to proceed. If you want a formal setting where that's going to happen, what I have a problem with is how are we going to reach who agrees on something that a council member says they'd like to see cut. Well, is that consensus from council? We're not going to be voting on anything but approval of the max levy this evening, so it gets cumbersome procedurally to try to do it piecemeal like that because we want council's vote on that or consensus.
Right, and I'd be hesitant through Robert's rules of saying resolution approving and adopting maximum levy of tax rates for 2023 minus this thing and minus that thing or with a different percentage. I mean, it's the item before us is the item before, and any amendments would have to be directly related.
But Mr. Mayor,
yes.
How do we get it on the agenda for the public to make a comment on? That's where we're coming up with suggestions, or like, I forget who said they want to go to 0, or they want to cut $1 million. I mean, how do we make that known so the public can comment?
Mm-hmm. I think that would be the announcement or the publishing of an agenda for a work session, committee of the whole.
So the committee of the whole meeting, we discuss the items, and then at the regular council meeting, we zero in on, so you could do both in the same day?
Right.
We can. I think what we were trying to avoid from a staff is just kind of trying to make changes on the fly and assume everything was then perfect that night. And the reason why I say that is because you also have to remember changes. When I say round numbers, like it's about 110,000 for 0.5%, why I'm using round numbers is it kind of also depends what you cut. And what I mean by that is some things have other effects. I'll pick the fire budget. If you were going to cut something out of the fire budget, that's 16% less revenue we'll have from you and I. So things aren't exactly always dollar for dollar. That's why I kind of use round numbers. So I think the trouble of why we were talking about, Daryl, trying to kind of get some direction is if you're trying to do it all the same night, it's a little tougher to give you exactly what just happened with the budget, So I think back to your question about if we were going to have a committee of the whole so we could make votes, at least then staff is given some opportunity to, okay, these are the votes we heard tonight. We'll take that, we'll put it in the budget, and on March 7th, we can come with the exact budget that we're proposing, have the public hearing, and everybody knows where we're setting. Does that make sense?
Correct. Jen, would that be helpful then if we actually emailed you before this or the committee meeting, what item numbers we were maybe looking at, each one individually, I mean, not as a group, but.
Sure, you can always
Very fair.
call and let me know what you're proposing, and then I can bring it back. We're here with some suggestions, and this is the impact it has. Yeah, sure, I can do that.
You're saying at the committee meeting, then you'd go through the suggested list and
Tell you this is how it affects that, and yeah.
it's published for the public to comment?
Yeah, we'd have an agenda, and they could do that, and then come March 7th, we could do the budget. One of the things I think for everybody to keep in mind too is, I think everybody always wants zero for property tax increases, right? Everybody wants that. But what you also have to remember is when you do a zero on residential, that does mean the decreases on commercial and multi-residential, like multi-residential can be pretty substantial. There'll be a decrease for commercial. So I'm only just saying that because sometimes that's the hard part in these property tax discussions is it doesn't seem equitable always, and that's what's always kind of the hard part. So just something to kind of keep in mind when you want to talk about going down to zero, what the impacts are on the other properties.
So is there a, what's the word I want to say, ratio or a cause and effect if we reduce residential to zero?
Mm-hmm.
What percent will commercial maybe go up? Or is there a trade-off? What kind of trade-off do you know?
So if residential goes down to zero, then commercial will see a decrease of 2%, and multi-residential will see like a 7% decrease.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but as we set the number, that number applies to each
Correct.
across the board. So if we lower the number, it lowers it across the board.
All of them.
Yeah.
So the ratio is
Yes.
exact, or, yeah.
Right, and it's because the ratio, Daryl, it comes up with the rollback factor for each property. Plus, keep in mind, there was that revaluation by the county for residential of 4.65%, which we didn't have for commercial. So those are the factors that get to your ratio that make the difference.
Yep. Then I had asked you if you had a chance to look when the high school bond issue kicks in the Hawkeye Community College.
Yeah. So I was able to, I got a hold of the Blackhawk County auditor's office, and they told me that the Hawkeye Community College bond actually already happened for the year we're in, fiscal year 22, and there wasn't a significant increase in there, so
other
he
words, we're
wasn't sure
paying
if
it
there was a
already.
decrease, so.
Let's let her finish, please.
Sorry.
So the current year that happened for Hawkeye Community College. It already was on people's fiscal year 22 taxes. The school, I was told by the school that they were looking at that it started having an impact the fall of 2023 is when it would first start seeing on the tax rolls. That's what I was told by the school. So it would not be the current year we're talking about right now. It's another fiscal year yet.
Okay. Well, any other comments or questions from council on this?
So just for clarity, there's no amendment potential for this. We just set the max tonight and then work from there with recommended removals. I mean, I'm in favor of getting a zero residential tax rate, and I think we need to try and help out our citizenry at this time. But if we can't amend that document,
We don't want to leave with the impression that you can amend the max levy tonight. So you can down. But that doesn't affect the final budget number that you'll come up with. The staff's position is it'd be great to just approve it as is right now and then work on the individual items in the budget, but I don't want to leave the impression you can't amend that down tonight. You certainly can.
Okay.
The max levy part.
So you said that the process has been changed just in the last 2 years. Why was it changed, and what's the difference?
So the state of Iowa made the change. And I think for them, it probably was driven on maybe more transparency in government. I think what's hard, and you you've heard me talk about this the last couple of years in goal setting is, I think what's hard is I think their intention about more transparency and an extra public hearing so everybody, had a chance to speak. The complication is just like I mentioned this year, the way they did it in the form, even the levy that's on the total maximum levy isn't the total levy. And so, part of me feels like in their effort to be more transparent, it maybe added more confusion, unfortunately. But it was by the state of Iowa. They're the ones who made the change.
And to follow on to Councilor Schultz's question, was there anything before this for reporting? It's not that it changed from something else. Was it that it
So
didn't
what we
exist?
so what we used to have is we had one public hearing for the budget, one night, one public hearing. What this added was this extra step of approving a maximum levy, and then we'll have what I would call the normal hearing the next time. That's what we always had, was just that normal hearing on the budget. This was the extra step.
What happens if it doesn't pass?
The resolution, max levy, I assume we have to start all over. And the complication with that is just like we talked about, the notice requirements has to be done by March 31st. That's the complication, is you have to publish no less than 10, no more than 20 days. So that's the problem with, trying to change or not pass and let's redo it is those publication notifications. As Ron, I think, talked about in goal setting this last year, unfortunately, the state of Iowa added an extra step, which takes really weeks, from a matter of notice and all that, and only gave us 2 more weeks to get it in. It's the March 31st deadline now instead of March 15th.
So if it didn't pass, would that mean we'd have to dance through at least one more special meeting in order to get back on track?
Right, except again, remember the special meeting, you have to have at least 10 days notice before the special meeting. So you'd have to do that, then have 10 days notice for the next hearing. That's what gets complicated. Now again, not passing tonight, you could amend it, just like, Mr. Gamfield asked. You wouldn't just have to have an all or nothing, I guess is what I'm trying to say tonight. You could not pass it and do an amended one tonight and keep the process going.
Okay. Just want to make sure we knew.
I think for us, from a staff, down only, right, we can't go up. I think from a staff perspective is, I think the concern of, Kevin's actually right, you can amend it tonight. Our concern is, what if you amend it to go down, but then council can't come to a consensus of what they want to cut? Now you're stuck. I mean, you can't go back up now. So that was just a little bit of our concern about that. That's why we were coming here recommending to pass the maximum. No, you can go down. That was just a thing we just didn't want to get ourselves caught in.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay. Seeing none. Okay, Councilman.
I guess I'm just curious, what numbers would it be to bring residential down to 0?
1 million.
I mean, what we're approving, what would be the amended amount?
Well, so you'd have to reduce the property tax levy by, I have $1,050,000. So you'd have to take the number on the published levy, I'm trying to find mine.
The 22,543?
Yep. And you'd have to subtract $1,050,000 to get 0 on residential.
I guess I'd be willing to meet halfway at 22 million. That'd cut 500,000 out of it as a max, and then we know we have some work to do, and then we force ourselves into some compromise. It's just my 2 cents on it, not a formal amendment yet.
But we still got to come up with the items we want to cut at the committee meeting on March 7th, and then we discuss it for approval already at the council meeting. Does that give you enough time to?
Well, I think, again, depends when you have the committee meeting. I guess I should have clarified that, I guess. But, but now again, I just want to make a note. If you take Mr. Gamfield's amendment to lower it by 500,000, again, remember, when you have that committee meeting, there's no going up. I mean, you are cutting 500,000 at that point. You have to. I mean, because that's what the resolution is. So you will. It's just coming to what the agreement is of where you want to get the 500,000.
What items?
Right. So that was our concern, is of what if you can't come to consensus.
So if we pick a few items and they're a couple 100,000 and you need another 300 and you say, let's lower everything by a percentage, because we said it was just general revenue, but there's other areas we can cut. what codes are we looking at? What items are we cutting besides general revenue?
Well, on the CIP, it wouldn't be anything. And I say that because sewer, refuse, stormwater, local option sales tax, road use tax, none of those have an effect on property
They're
tax.
enterprise funds.
Right. Now, you can talk about GO projects. They do have an impact on property taxes. The problem is for those projects, when you reduce something, you're doing it over the life of the bonds. So if it's I'm just making it easy. If it's a $100,000 project, you're not cutting $100,000 in the current year. You're cutting $100,000 over a 10-year bond. So it doesn't quite have the dollar-to-dollar impact that the things with GR does. So
it would affect the future
it would.
tax.
That's what I'm saying. But I didn't want you to think that if I picked $1 million of GO money, that was going to save you $1 million in FY23. It's going to save you $1 million over 10 years and help the property tax.
100,000.
Councilmember DeBoer?
Well, it seems like we'd be better to vote on the max as it is without an amendment, because it's the max. Like you said, you can go down. And then if we all let Jen know areas or numbers that we would like to consider, you could put that all together, and then we'd be able to consider that at that work session. And then we wouldn't be pinned into a corner.
And we'd have public input, right?
Yeah.
Which is incredibly important, I think,
Correct.
for all of
You'd have
us.
Public input at that committee meeting.
Okay.
You want to call it a work session, committee meeting.
I'm okay with setting the max as it is,
All right, so
not to pigeonhole us.
if no other added items or questions or comments for this, then it's been motioned and seconded to have the resolution approving and adopting the maximum levy for affected property tax levies for 2023, and will require a roll call vote. So, Madam Clerk?
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Ganfield,
Nay.
Sires,
Nay.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
5 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That brings us over, and I apologize, I should have said I closed the public hearing. I don't believe I did that, so I do that now for that
Does
item.
that pass then, or does it require 6 yeses to pass?
5.
It could pass on 5.
So that does pass, and we will schedule a special committee meeting, a committee of the whole, to discuss potential items to remove.
The items that we bring
Right.
forward.
We just ask for council members, if you have ideas or things that you, particular projects you're interested in having considered, please send that to Director Rodenbeck.
Mr. Mayor, could
Yes.
the public offer comments to cut whatever they want?
Well, they can always email
Just-
you.
yeah, and then-
I would say bring that, if you're in the public, you're welcome to email the council members. Be pretty, yeah. Let's have that go through you to Director Rodenbeck. So with that, it takes us over to item 4, which is a public hearing on the proposal to enter into a February 2022 amendment to development agreement with Cedar Falls Municipal Utilities relative to the Unified Highway 58 Corridor Urban Renewal Area. Is there a motion to receive and file approved publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that passes. And Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. So for staff comments tonight, I believe Shane Graham is speaking on that. Mr. Graham, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. In all of our urban renewal plans, we list out specific capital projects that the city has, as well as projects that CFU, our utility company, may have as well. When we update our urban renewal plan, as far as projects go, we enter into an agreement with Cedar Falls Utilities as well. That way, they know and we know what projects we may be seeing from them in the future. And then in the event that those projects happen, they come back to council to approve the expenditure out of our TIF fund. This amendment is to our unified urban renewal area. If you remember back 2 years ago, we did an amendment to this urban renewal area to include the new industrial park expansion area. So the urban renewal plan has some additional expenses that CFU may undertake as far as when we do our expansion of our industrial park area. So we're updating this development agreement between CFU to basically reflect what's in our urban renewal plan as far as any future expenditures for utility extensions, that sort of thing. The Cedar Falls Board, or the CFU Board did approve this agreement at their December board meeting, and so now we're just looking for council to approve it as well.
Okay, thank you. With that, does anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none from the gallery and checking Zoom as well. See no raised hands on Zoom. So I will consider the public hearing closed on that item. And that takes us to 4E, which is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a February 2022 amendment to development agreement with Cedar Falls Municipal Utilities relative to the Unified Highway 58 corridor urban renewal area. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion.
This entails
Please.
north and south, correct? The entire, the 58 corridor, the north industrial park and the south industrial park.
Yes, the Unified Urban Renewal Area does include our North Cedar Falls Industrial Park, and then it goes along Highway 58 all the way down to our the South Industrial Park as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Canfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 5 is a public hearing on a proposal to enter into an agreement for private development and to consider conveyance of certain city-owned real estate to Wayne Estates LLC. Is there a motion to receive and file? Approve of publication.
So moved.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes. Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you. And I believe we have Mr. Shane Graham again here speaking for staff comments tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Before council tonight is an agreement for private development between the city and Wayne Estates LLC for a new 16,000 square foot building in our industrial park on Technology Parkway. The company is currently located in an existing space at 6612 Chancellor Drive. It's a multi-tenant facility that they're currently leasing. They've seen some company growth and would like to own their own building. So we've been working with them on finding a suitable lot for that project. It'll be lot 15 of the West Viking Road Industrial Park Phase 4, which is a little over 2 acres in size. Again, it'll be about a 16,000 square foot facility, and it'll have a taxable valuation of $2.39 million once it's completed. So with that, the city in the development agreement is looking at donating the land for the project. And then also with the taxable valuation being above the $1.2 million that we'd like to see, we would offer then a 5-year industrial tax abatement with the project once the project is completed. So with that, we're excited. We've been working with the company for several months now. We're excited to see them expand and stay in Cedar Falls. So we would hope council would approve this agreement. They're eager to get started. Soon as spring gets here, they want to get started. So we're excited to see that.
Okay, thanks again, Shane. With that, does anyone for the public wish to speak on item 5D? Okay, seeing none from the gallery, any on Zoom? Okay, seeing none there either. Let's double check here. Okay, so none there. And so I'll consider this public hearing closed. And that takes us over to 5E, which is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement for private development and approving and authorizing execution of a quitclaim deed conveying certain city-owned real estate to Wayne Estates LLC. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion and seconded. And open for discussion. Seeing none, then it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Item 6 is a public hearing on a proposal to enter into an agreement for private development and to consider conveyance of certain city-owned real estate to McWing LLC. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? If that passes, Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed for this item?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Staff comments, again, Shane Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, staff's been working with McWing LLC for several months now on a new project in the industrial park. This would be located on Capitol Way, west of Production Drive, looking at a total of 4 new buildings, 10,000 square foot each for a total of 40,000 square foot after the project is completed, with a total valuation of just under $3 million. After City Council set the public hearing on February 7th, we've been working with the developer about tweaking some of the language in the development agreement. That hasn't been completed as of yet, so we would ask that council continue the hearing to the next meeting, where we then can present the full development agreement to council.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I would open it, if I understand it right, would open it for public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to speak? And I'm seeing none there, and I'm seeing none on Zoom. So then we would continue the public hearing, and I don't need a vote for that, correct? Just have. Okay. All right, great. So is there a motion to continue the public hearing?
Motion to continue?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we will continue this hearing into the March 7th meeting to get the final information for this project so we can do the vote. So thank you very much, Mr. Grimm. Now that takes us over to item 7, which is a public hearing on the proposed plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2022 street construction project. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Motion approved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Madam Clerk, do we have any written communications filed?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So for staff comment tonight, I believe we have Mr. Claypool. Welcome, Mr. Claypool. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight's public hearing is on the 2022 street construction project. This project involves the construction and restoration of portions of 6 city streets totaling 1.28 miles in length. The typical reconstruction includes removal and replacement of the pavement surface and storm sewer network, any necessary sanitary and water main replacements, and other items including the replacement of driveways, driveway approaches, curb ramps, modifications to existing storm sewer structures, and replacements of striping and signage and other miscellaneous items. The 2 streets receiving a full reconstruction on this plan set are West 18th Street from just east of Campus Street to College Street, and Olive Street from 4th Street south to 6th Street. And Olive Street is a continuation south from last year's project. The other 4 streets on the project are Iowa Street, a portion between West and 1st Street. Hudson Road will be receiving an overlay, and that's from 1st down to 12th Street, and that would complete the overlays on that corridor that have been slowly working up. Elmwood Avenue and Pin Oak Drive. The total estimated cost for this project is expected to be $3.18 million, and the project will be primarily funded with local option sales tax and other minor funding from the Street Construction Fund, Sanitary Sewer Rental Fund, General Obligation Fund, and the Cedar Falls Utilities. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Mr. Claypool. Now open this for public comment. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? Seeing none in the gallery and on Zoom, I am also seeing no hands. So I will consider the public hearing closed then for this item and take us over to Part 7E, which is the resolution approving and adopting the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2022 street construction project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the mentioned overlay from 12th, Hudson Road, 12th Street to 1st Street, I question whether that's really necessary in the time when we have a tight budget. If we could consider postponing that or just fixing some of the concrete panels in the street and call it good, because much of the street is in really good shape, and just putting an overlay on it doesn't seem really necessary. I mean, it'll match the rest of it, but I'd be interested in seeing what we could do there to save some money.
So that would require an amendment to the existing plan. So do you want to offer the amendment?
We discussed, and then, okay, I make motion to amend to remove the portion of the overlay mentioned from First Street to 12th Street and allocate that money to another worthier project.
On Hudson, right?
On Hudson, yes.
From 1st to 12th. Okay, so that's been motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for discussion. And you could ask staff as well if you have questions.
Yeah,
for staff.
if I hear what the comment would be from staff regarding that.
I guess the first thing I want to clear up to make sure that there's no miscommunication, that this project has no effect on the budget. It's local option sales tax, and it can only be used for street reconstruction and storm sewer and things like that. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of work on Hudson Road since the time that I started here in 2013. It was probably around 2011 that they began overlaying Hudson Road. The problem is if you wait too long to do maintenance on a street like Hudson Road, if you wait 5 years too long, you'll end up having to reconstruct the road for more cost. So the goal is with an overlay is to provide an extra 10 to 15 years of life on the pavement before we have to do reconstruction. So between 12th and 1st, now's the time to do it. And if we wait too long, it may be too late. So.
Okay, but I had an understanding, I don't know where I got this in the last 4 years in council, that Hudson was earmarked for a total redo sometime in something like the next 10 years or less. Because you look at the south end of it, University and Hudson right in there, there's some rough alligator cracking, I guess is the term, or heaving, and 12th Street intersection is not the greatest. Some of the curbing is going to need some repair. So if that's the case, that we do a total redo of Hudson Road, skip this here, get 5 years out of it, fix some of the panels, and then do a whole redo is what I thought was on the agenda.
So if you recall, Hudson Road that I just stated began in probably around 2011 around the Green Hill Road University area, and we're starting to see signs there. So that pavement is 11 years old already. So you're correct. At some point here in the next 10 years, we're going to have to start rebuilding Hudson Road in those areas that have already received the overlay. And Hudson Road's a corridor that you're not going to build in even 3 years. I mean, that's going to be a 5-year project or more. So.
Stages.
So in other words, as we do the reconstruction, we'll do it in chunks like we're doing the overlays. So the part that was overlaid 11 years ago would get reconstructed first and so on. Okay.
This is the last phase on Hudson Road. We've been reconstructing it from the south moving up north, and this is the last phase.
Correct? Okay.
So from what he just said, it's a 3.8 million from local option sales tax, but he also said that part of it was from the general obligation. And that's something we can take out, right? So is there a breakdown of
how much would be for the Hudson?
How much that would mean and what that would do to the project?
What's that? Yeah, it's some of those items that are in the reconstruction project that are outside of what we can use local option sales tax for are usually covered by either general obligation bonds or the street construction fund. So those items would be cut then from the project plans.
I think we got the answer coming here.
And I can clarify on Chase's behalf, since it is just the overlay on Hudson, there would be no expected GO dollars going to the Hudson overlay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was just a
Other questions or comments?
misspoke.
Yeah, what about the turn?
Just a moment, please.
Oh,
Just a
excuse me.
moment. Councilor Schultz.
So you just misspoke when you said that was part of the...
There's a GO on some of the other streets.
Okay.
Involved. Yep. Hudson, due to the nature of what would be or what's planned for it, is there's no GO.
Thanks for clarifying. Thanks.
Councilor Sires.
Could we get a turn through at that time for the Schofield Chiropractic? I know they were looking for one. When we do a overlay, it would be a good time to put something in there to make it a little more convenient to that area.
I don't have the agreement in front of me, but I recall when that development came in, obviously that's a right in, right out, and Hudson Road is access controlled, so median cuts, the only median cuts you see are at intersections. I know there was discussion even near First Street of a median cut, and that wasn't allowed at that time.
Other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, actually, we are I think we're still on your point.
Still on the agenda.
We had the
Or
amendment. Yeah.
amendment, sorry.
So we need to vote on that amendment first before we can go back to the original motion. So is there anything else to discuss for the amendment? Okay, so the amendment on the floor is to remove the portion of the overlay for Hudson Road from 1st to 12th Street. No other discussion on that. Then if you wish to have that amendment added, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that fails and takes us back to the original motion, approving and adopting the plan specifications, form of contract, estimated cost for the 22 street construction project. So any final discussion on that? Okay, so motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Canfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. That does pass and takes us to item 8, which is a public hearing on the proposed plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Oak Park Boulevard sanitary sewer repair project. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that passes. Madam Clerk, do any written communications filed for this?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So for staff comments tonight, we have Mr. Matt Tolan. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Tonight's public hearing is for the Oak Park Sanitary Sewer Repair Project. This project involves the removal and replacement of 750 linear feet of 8-inch sanitary sewer adjacent to Minnetonka Drive. This project includes manhole installation, sanitary sewer service reconnection, pavement removal and replacement, plantings and sodding. The project will be located on city, residential, and railroad right-of-ways. The total estimated cost is $865,000. The city will use sanitary sewer rental funds for the construction of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tolan. Now open it for any public comments. Anything from the gallery tonight? Or from Zoom? Seeing none there either. So I will consider the public hearing closed for this item and take us over to Part 8E, which is the resolution approving and adopting the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Oak Park Boulevard sanitary sewer repair project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motioned and seconded. Any council discussion on this? Are you seeing none? Then it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us out of the special business and takes us to old business, which is passing Ordinance 3005, amending Chapter 12, Human Relations of the Code of Ordinances relative to the Human Rights Commission upon its second consideration. I'll also note on this, there is an option, of course, to suspend the rules and approve it on third. There was a request from Human Rights Commission if we'd be willing to consider that, so that is an option.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay, so motion and seconded to suspend the rules and have the third and final reading tonight. Got me stuck again. Okay, Kevin's looking at me. So it's been motioned and seconded, and this is a roll call vote, right?
It requires 3/4.
It requires 3/4. Okay, so roll call, Madam Clerk.
DeBoer,
Is this on suspending the rules?
Suspending the rules.
Yes.
Yep.
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So we do have the third and final reading tonight of this item, and that's passing the ordinance 3005, amending Chapter 12, Human Relations of the Code of Ordinances relative to the Human Rights Commission upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion for this? Again, it just changes the Human Relations Code so that it's 11 members instead of 9. So motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
DeVore,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Clerk. Over into consent calendar. These items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or the public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member wish to pull an item 10 through 14? Seeing none, does anyone from the public wish to pull an item 10 through 14? Seeing none in the gallery and none on Zoom. So I will read those. These are item 10, approving recommendations of the mayor relative to appointment of members to boards and commissions. 11 being receiving and filing work session minutes of February 7th. 12 is receiving and filing committee of the whole minutes of February 7th. 13, receiving and filing communication from Civil Service Commission for a certified list for the position of public safety officer. And then 14 is approving applications for beer permits and liquor licenses. Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Those items do pass then. And that takes us over to the resolution calendar. These items will be acted upon by a roll call vote in a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or the public requests that a specific item be considered separately. So we did strike 15. So does council request to pull any items 16 through 31?
29 and 30.
Okay, so Councilmember Schultz has item 29 and 30, and this is in regards to just the resolution setting the date. It wouldn't be for discussing the item itself. Would that make you want to change your mind there?
It's still a little confusing, I guess.
Sure. So for 29 and 30, what there is going to be voted on tonight is the resolution setting March 7th, 2022 as the date of the public hearing. So we couldn't discuss the item. It would be related to, I don't think we should have it on that night. That's the only thing you could really bring up for that.
Okay.
Yeah, because we will discuss it in the next meeting, or the actual item itself, and that's the appropriate time to do that.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm fine
does that
with
make
that.
sense? All right. So I'll remove those then from the pool list, and any other items from 16 through 31.
Mr. Mayor, 28.
28, okay.
Number 19.
Is 28 the same?
Yeah, so that's about the setting of the date. So do you wish to discuss changing the date?
Correct.
Okay. So 28 for
And then 19.
Councilmember Cruz. Okay, and I heard another one?
19, Mr. Mayor.
19 from Councilmember Canfield. Okay. All right, so any from the public for this? I don't think I asked that yet. Okay, seeing none, then I will pull item 19 and 28 for separate discussion. And that's all, correct? Okay, so.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, did you check
Yes.
Zoom on pulling item?
Oh, good question. I don't see any hands, but if any on Zoom, speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, seeing none. All right, so thanks for that. So I'll read those items minus 19 and 28. 16 is a resolution levying a final assessment for costs incurred by the city to mow property. 17 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a licensed training provider agreement with the Red Cross. 18 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement for professional services for CDBG funding for service agencies. We're skipping 19. 20 is a resolution receiving and filing bids and approving and accepting the low bid of Peterson Contractors for the West Viking Road Phase 5 project. 21 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a professional service agreement for the 2022 bridge inspection project. 22 is a resolution approving the certification of completion and accepting the work of Peterson Contractors for the Mandalay Slope repair project. 23 is a resolution approving the certificate of completion for sidewalk assessment project Zone 4, 2021. 24 is a resolution approving the final statement of expenditures for the 2021 sidewalk assessment project Zone 4. 25 is a resolution receiving and filing and approving the plan specifications and estimate of cost for the Lake Street Trail project. 26 is a resolution receiving and filing and setting March 7th, 2022 as the date of public hearing for plan specifications, a form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2022 CDBG sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. 27 is a resolution setting March 7th, 2022 as the date of public hearing to consider entering into an agreement for private development and to consider conveyance of certain city-owned real estate to KL Iowa 01 LLC. We're skipping 28. And then 29 is resolution setting March 7th, 2022 as the date of public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to increased parking ratios for mixed-use and multi-unit buildings in the downtown character district to 1 parking space per bedroom. Then 30 is a resolution setting March 7th, 2022 as the date of public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to increasing parking ratios for mixed-use and multi-unit buildings in the downtown character district to 0.75 parking spaces per bedroom as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then finally, 31 is a resolution setting March 7th, 2022 as the date of public hearing on the proposed FY23 budget for the city of Cedar Falls. Is there a motion to approve those items minus 19 and 28?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
DeBoer.
Aye.
Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Canfield.
Aye.
Cyrus.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's jump back to item 19, which is a resolution approving and authorizing the expenditure of funds for the purchase of dump truck snow plow components for the Public Works Department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion and seconded, and Councilmember Ganfield, you had some questions?
Yeah, I just had 3 questions. One of them I found in the document, so I apologize. This is paid for through street construction funds, right? Is this simply earmarking with real assets instead of money to prevent against the cost going up? And then my last question is, what date do we have? Are we currently putting out for the chassis, or when might we expect the chassis to be in stock?
So for your first question, correct, street construction fund. Yes to your second question. Dustin might be able to clarify the third one here, but obviously over the last 2 years we've been having trouble with equipment, even in the construction industry, material shortages. We had this bid go out. Unfortunately, we received bids for the components, but no bids for the chassis, and these vendors aren't providing us dates, as the dates are 16 plus months out, but I'll let Dustin further explain when we might be able to expect a chassis.
Mayor, Council. So I spoke with a few of the vendors the other day. March 1st, they're opening for bids to go in, but that does not say a date of when they'll come in or anything like that. That's just when they are allowing, International Freightliner are allowing us to actually submit an order. Delivery date I would expect to be at least the calendar year 2023 or 24. So we're kind of keeping our eyes open on used stuff, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Thanks, Dustin. Councilor Ganfield, or any other questions? Okay. Anything else? Okay, then it's been motioned and seconded. Let me make sure I've got it. To receive and to approve and authorize expenditure of funds for the dump truck and snowplow components for Public Works Department. This requires a roll call vote.
DeBoer.
Aye.
Cruz.
Aye.
Harding.
Aye.
Canfield.
Aye.
Cyrus.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Over to 28, that's a resolution setting March 7th, 2022 as the date of public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to the removal of shared parking requirements in the downtown character district. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. And Councilmember Cruz, you had some questions or comments on that?
Yeah, looking at or watching the discussion on planning and zoning regard shared parking, there were missing some components about whether it was required to be on site or within 600 feet walking distance. And what I'd like to do is postpone the date of this public hearing to March 21st and then have an opportunity for a referral to discuss the remote shared parking or whether it needs to be contiguous or on-site. That makes sense.
Yeah, you're looking at an amendment then to March 21st for the public hearing. We can't talk about the referral really at this point, but you wish to have the date changed to March 21st?
More time.
What's that?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the amendment. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for
I have
discussion.
a question.
Yes.
Would it be better to just a motion to continue since you don't know when the issue would be referred and sent to P&Z for the remote parking? So are you better off just to continue it, not to put a date on it?
So have it on the 7th?
No,
Continue
just
it?
to continue it. Just like we did the other item, it was just a motion to continue.
So, but we'd keep it as is then, right?
No,
And
you just, instead of a motion to continue it to March 21st, it's just a motion to continue it. So you don't have it on neither the date of the 7th or the 21st because we don't know that it would be ready yet because we don't know how long this referral would take. Can't do that?
No, Mr. Mayor, if I'm understanding correctly, we would have to have the public hearing opened on the 7th, and then we would move that night to continue it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think what Councilmember DeBoer is talking about is a motion to postpone indefinitely, but that gets tricky procedurally under Robert's Rules of Order.
So that's the discussion here is having it on March 21st. That was what was motioned and seconded as an amendment. So any other discussion for having it changed, having this meeting date changed to, or public hearing date changed to March 21st? Okay, I'm seeing none. So all in favor of changing the hearing date to March 21st as an amendment, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so let's see a show of hands. And this is just the amendment to change the date to March 21st. Aye. 1, 2, 3. Seeing, I got 3. Is there any over here? So none over here. So that's 3. Nay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that does fail. And that takes us back to the original motion of setting March 7th, 2022 as the date of public hearing. Any further discussion? Okay, so motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
DeBoer,
Nay.
Cruz,
Nay.
Harding,
Aye.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz,
Nay.
Four voting aye, 3 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that does pass, and so we will have that hearing date as March 7th for the proposed amendments to Chapter 26 for the shared parking requirement. So that is the remainder of our resolution calendar, and that takes us over to bills and claims. Is there a motion to approve bills and claims for February 21st?
So moved.
So moved.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion from council or from the public? Okay, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does pass. Oh,
Mr. Mayor, I think we need to do a roll call vote.
oh, you're right. Thank you. You just say, point of order. Point your finger at me. So this, the motion and second requires a roll call vote.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
Harding,
Aye.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
all voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have any council referrals tonight?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
as I was mentioning there, I'd like to have a referral for a committee meeting on the criteria with the shared parking, that the discussion didn't include remote shared parking 600 feet away as an option, whether shared parking should be satisfied on site, on the building site, or up to 600 feet away. 600 feet away is unrealistic. It'd be like people coming to our
That
meeting.
gets more into the discussion. So
Okay.
we have a referral up. And then what's the motion then? A committee meeting to discuss shared parking, remote? Does that sound about
Let's
right?
do-
I got criteria of shared parking.
Criteria shared parking? And then we can open it for discussion.
Second.
So now we can discuss it. So yes, please.
Okay, so the
Rationale?
idea of having,
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I
Yes,
second it.
that's where we're seconded.
so the idea of having shared parking 600 feet away to satisfy the residential requirements of a building seems kind of illogical. It'd be like parking up behind Casey's somewhere, or we have River Place building where people don't drive around the backside of the building and park. They park on State Street, and that's not even 100 feet. So if we're going to have shared parking, I think we need to specify that the shared parking is on the building site that the developer would provide for retail customers, retail shop owners, employees, that sort of thing. So you would satisfy a need for parking that the code doesn't really discuss, because any of the new commercial development component, the retail component, doesn't have a requirement for parking. And the more restaurants and retail you add, you're going to use up city parking.
I would wonder if, for Mr. Rogers, if this is getting into questions of zoning, would it be more appropriate to refer this to planning and zoning as an additional item? Because I think it'd be preemptive if we discuss it here without planning and zoning having that say.
The way we've been handling, I think, Mr. Mayor, is council makes a referral to P&Z for their, we're treating it as a petition for P&Z's recommendation. I just would request that the referral to P&Z be very specific about what provisions that council wishes P&Z to look at precisely, so we know what they're supposed to be recommending on.
Okay. So procedurally, it would be inappropriate to have the referral for the committee of the whole. So I'll call that out of order, and then, but it could take us back then to the
I
referral.
can amend my,
No, I'm ruling that out of order, so you don't have to.
oh,
So, no, don't worry. Now we can do that as a
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to do a referral to planning and zoning to discuss the criteria of shared parking, whether we allow it up to 600 feet away or on site.
Okay. Is that clear enough? Maybe Director Sheets do you need any more information going into planning and zoning?
So just clarify, the concern is that the current ordinance, the way it reads, is that shared parking could be allowed up to a certain distance away. And so you'd like the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss whether that distance is appropriate. And actually what you're saying is you feel that on-site is the most appropriate. Not
Correct.
any distance.
Correct.
So P&Z should discuss whether there should be any distance. Really, should it be on-site only?
Correct.
Okay. That's a really long motion, but
Oh,
what do you have, Madam Clerk?
I have criteria of shared parking, do not allow remote parking, clarified to on-site only.
Okay. So that's the motion on the floor for the referral. Is there a second for it?
Second.
Okay, second for it. Any other discussion?
I just hope that we're watching planning and zoning when they're discussing this, because they do a great job and they're very, very, very thorough. So when we're talking about transparency and the process and all that stuff, I hope we're really paying attention to these folks.
Yes, thank you very much. And this is how the process is supposed to work. So this is going very well. So it's been motion and seconded. If there's no other questions on it, does anybody need the motion reread? Because I know Jackie'd love to do that. Yeah, seeing not a need to. So it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Actually, it's a motion.
Oh,
Voice vote.
right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so just to be safe, let's see a show of hands. Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and nay. 1, 2. Okay, so that does pass to send to planning and zoning. And with that, are there any other referrals tonight?
yes, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor
unless
Cruz.
somebody else wants to go next.
Well, I don't think there's another one. Okay, so go ahead.
I've heard some concerns, and I experienced some concerns of safety at the 6th Street and State intersection behind the building here, actually. And I'd like to have a engineering discussion of improving potential safety from Main and 6th to State and 6th.
Okay, that's very concise. So is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, motion and seconded. Open for discussion.
I guess, pretty much like I'm mentioning here, whether we could look at any and all considerations for whether it could be one-way or parking on the side or closing one end or the other, or modifications to improve safety and or improve parking.
Okay, so can you read that back for us, Madam Clerk? In a second.
I will try. I have considerations or modifications to improve safety from Main, the 6th and Main to 12th and Main?
6th and State.
6th and
6th and
State.
State, I'm sorry, okay.
So I asked for that just because we'll have to have some sort of vehicle to get it back to council. So would it be, are you looking at a presentation to like a committee of the whole? Because it's got to come to us somehow.
Sure, that seems logical.
And it doesn't seem
It
like
wouldn't be a
it'd
workshop.
work session. That's kind of low for this. So would that be acceptable or make sense for US Director Schrage? Is that your land, or is that you could just present it to a committee of the whole in a couple weeks?
Yep, we could do that. It's probably going to take more than a couple weeks. I mean, I keep hearing the word safety. I mean, we're going to have to look at crash data, pedestrians, those types of things. It's going to take a few months at least to get through that. So,
Okay.
especially got to wait till spring to be able to do all that information.
Yeah, and we don't have a time deadline on it for other projects. I mean, there's downtown and.
I mean,
Could that overlap into the intersection determination or timeline with 6th and Main?
well, I keep hearing things thrown around like one way. That would definitely affect the intersection. So, I mean, we're referencing safety here, and just off the cuff, I doubt there's going to be any accidents shown on this stretch right here. So, we'll do the evaluation and bring the information back to you. But I highly doubt it's going to show that any recommendations for, I mean, if we start talking about parking, we may be able to lay out something different there, but in regards to how the street functions, I don't think it would be changed.
Is the concern right up here where it's hard to see when people are walking? Is that the concern people are
That's
hearing?
what I've heard, yeah.
Sure.
At the State Street intersection.
Right. I mean, it is one that you have to really pay attention to when you're creeping out, but
So I guess to Daryl's request, it's parking and the safety.
Yeah,
So parking is a part of it too.
whatever we can do.
Okay. And to be clear, this would be decoupled from the Main Street reconstruction project, not part of that decision, because that's like basically moving forward as is. But still very important to have that sense if there's a safety concern.
So it sounds like it's more or less at the State Street intersection, but look at the corridor from Main.
Well, the entrance, I guess you'd say to 6th, could be modified if it improves the safety.
At State. Right, or
6th and Main, and having the flow of traffic if it changes.
well, then I'm wondering if that gets into the territory of the Main Street reconstruction project, which has
Well,
already been
technically,
decided.
it is part of it, correct.
If we do that, then it goes against what was already decided for the Main Street reconstruction project. It's sort of like an end run back into reconsidering it, basically.
It's all part of safety. That was never delved into in any great extent, particularly, well, if you change one end of it, it's going to affect the other end of it.
I feel like it was, I mean, to say that none of us considered safety when we were thinking about that intersection as we talked about the Main Street reconstruction is not true. I can totally understand the concern up here because, I mean, I feel like that's a legitimate concern because there's like a blind spot kind of. But safety, I'm sure, was on all of our minds when we thought about the intersection over here. So I'm okay with I guess, whatever, I'm okay with talking about here and safety over here, but to redo that, what we've already decided on with the council vote is not okay.
Yeah, it would go against what the council already determined. But certainly for this intersection, I think it's right here, would be appropriate to have that safety consideration.
That's why I mentioned it. 6th in Main and 6th in State. Because it's the whole little, it's one block.
Where's it at?
Oh, you're right.
It's right there.
We're
Yeah.
facing that way. That's Main
Yeah.
Street. Okay. All right. I'm wrong. You're right.
I was close.
Okay. So, is that clear then for what the guidance is?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So the motion and second, any final discussion on that? Okay, then it's a referral, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Any final referrals tonight? Seeing none, then taking over to staff updates, or city council updates. Do we have any city council updates tonight?
I don't know if it's an appropriate place for it, so you can correct me if I'm wrong after the fact, but I neglected to bring a copy of it with me, but I was really appreciative of our library's resources on a new book that was published by a young man named Nate Trainer. The book is Nate's Triumph, and it's a fantastic book about inclusivity and counting others as able. Anyway, picked it up because they were able to purchase it per request, and I just thought that's a fantastic resource for our community, and wanted to encourage people to utilize the library, especially during our current reading program. So
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, then turn it over to staff. Do we have any updates from staff tonight? None tonight. So that would take us over to executive session, except we have canceled that. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.